Next, we have Matthew Contreras from the Pennsylvania Advocacy for Children's Education. Mr. Contreras, do you swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth and whole truth and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
God.
You may proceed.
Good morning. Chairman Argyle, I was going to say we won't tell him, but you came back, so. Chairman Argyle, Vice Chair Dush, Minority Chair Street, Senators, fellow panelists, parents, and fellow Pennsylvanians. Also want to give a shout out to all the parents back home who've been fighting hard. And also I want to say thank you to the brave women, mothers who came up earlier and shared their testimony with us here this morning. I'm president of Pennsylvania Advocacy for Children's Education, or P.A.C.E., an organic grassroots organization of community members, parents, and grandparents who join together to combat government overreach concerning education, health, and society. We are located in Northeast Pennsylvania. We humbly began in our kitchens, but have since moved, it appears, to the big house here, and we are grateful for the opportunity to be heard by those who would help. I'd like to personally thank Senator Mastriano, the lead sponsor of this bill, for his leadership in championing parental rights and explicitly recognizing, as this bill states, that government or any of its political subdivisions may not infringe upon the fundamental rights of a parent. First, I would like to unequivocally state that parents are not domestic terrorists. Despite the best efforts of the National School Board Association, the Department of Justice, and the Biden administration to label us as such. However, if exercising constitutionally protected activities, asking questions of our government to gain information and make reasoned judgments, loving our country and its rich history, good and bad, and giving our children practical and moral direction is now the definition of agitator, troublemaker, or domestic terrorist, then yes, we proudly wear that badge. But of course, we are not enemies of the state. We are hardworking, proud Pennsylvanians. Parents who love and cherish our children. Parents share a soul bond with their children so fundamental that no policy, no law, no edict, no TikTok video can deny it. It is unmistakable. It is an unalienable right and liberty. And so, to understand this bond in context, I turn to the beginning in our founding, which, in our beautiful Commonwealth, the birthplace of liberty, is all too appropriate and right. As described by the ACLU, the irony does not escape me, democracy means that people ought to be able to vote for public officials in fair elections and make most political decisions by majority rule. Liberty, Senator Street, on the other hand, means that even in a democracy, individuals have rights that no majority should be able to take away. The rights that the Constitution's framers wanted to protect from government abuse were referred to in the Declaration of Independence as unalienable rights. They were also called natural rights. And to James Madison, they were the great rights of mankind. In 1787, Thomas Jefferson, referencing the Federal Bill of Rights, argued that a Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to against every government on earth, general or particular, and what no just government should refuse. Today we debate a parental Bill of Rights, which frankly should not be necessary. Yet it is demonstrably necessary to safeguard our children against a society in moral decline and a massive state bureaucracy ever further reaching into our liberties. There is no natural right more abundantly clear and unalienable than a parent's right to guide their child as they see fit. Those who oppose this bill would like us to forget this covenant with our Creator. We must not. The bureaucracy would like to forget these natural rights or call them, quote, ordinary. These rights come from a loving God who inspires us in the belief that our worth is not derived from money, power, or people, but through the grace and love of that God. And so I say respectfully, Senators, Senator Street, the government cannot grant us or take away from us that which God Almighty has already bestowed His children and our children. We urge you to pass this legislation out of committee because the main business of government is to protect these unalienable rights, not to create or remove them. And the COVID-19 pandemic gave parents a small window into the inner workings of education in Pennsylvania and America. Thank God it did. Unfortunately, that small window remains all too unexplored because the bureaucracy fights to keep it closed. Government education is broken and is in desperate need of course correction. There is a severe breakdown in the level of communication and collaboration between school districts and parents. The school board system designed for local control of schools has turned into a top-down system of federally and state-guided mandates to say to parents, do what you're told or else. This is not a partisan issue, Senator Street, it is not. In our district, during the lockdowns and mandates—
I don't think it's appropriate for you to single out any one senator of this committee, if you would.
Understood.
Please, according to our rules.
Unmasked children were illegally segregated and bullied based on unfounded fears and lust for further power. Students were interrogated by administrators who sought out their private weekend activities and whereabouts to satisfy unconstitutional and draconian contact tracing directives. Due process and equal protection be damned. While standing outside of a school board meeting, a mother was criminally trespassed for saying, quote, "You're outside, why don't you breathe the fresh air," to other adults. Her son was unable to play soccer and she was the emergency contact for her niece. Charges were only dismissed after an attorney was hired, and still the district told the mother that they would permanently ban her if she exercised her First Amendment privilege again. Another mother had a 6-month ban placed on her, which was just lifted, for daring to exercise her constitutionally protected rights of free speech and redress of her government in a nonviolent manner. She was unable to pick up her children or have them participate in after-school activities, including bringing medicine when needed. Our local school board president has called parents who want a voice in their children's education malcontents. He has dismissed curriculum concerns as frivolous and has even said that any attempt to question the district about critical race theory or social and emotional learning would be viewed as, quote, a lecture, and that would constitute a, quote, hostile environment. A handout asked students to research pictures of no less than 8 lynchings, and graphically describe each photo and events surrounding it. I myself was personally escorted out of a meeting for daring to place an agenda item following the school board rules. A recent quiz saw a question asking which pharmaceutical company had the first vaccine fully approved by the FDA, among other leading questions on climate change. Students were issued a DEI survey without parental consent, designed for college-age adults at the University of Michigan, which asked questions on gender and sexual orientation of middle schoolers as young as 11. Another survey given without parental consent was the National Tobacco Survey, an FDA survey, which was buried more questions about gender identity and intrusive questions about students' personal lives. I have provided those attachments for the committee. We have seen evidence of all sorts of questionable material in curricula, health classes, quizzes, the library books and textbooks. In the McGraw-Hill Reading Wonders series, K through 5 students, the topics for English language arts include civil rights, government and politics, immigration, and social justice. But this is not surprising considering McGraw-Hill states that the texts in Wonders are organized by essential questions which invite the exploration of social justice. And 2 of the main contributors of Wonders claim critical race theory as one of their, quote, research interests. I was going to provide some examples, but I think Ms. Redmond did a very good job of that, and I will skip that. Make no mistake, the evidence is clear. The interstate highway through which the Leviathan of Woke Inc. and its radical agendas are run are directed and managed by the Pennsylvania Department of Education, the Pennsylvania School Board Association, the Pennsylvania School Counselors Association, and the Pennsylvania State Education Association, the P.A.C.E. or the Teachers Union, all their tentacles of national affiliations. A glance at any of their websites or time spent researching the system quickly demonstrates what their intended goal is. It is not to educate, but rather promote a radical woke agenda that ushers in a cultural Marxism that is both racially divisive and sexually permissive. Teachers, educators, and counselors play a vital role in the education of children, but not the primary role. The primary role for a child's education are parents and the family unit. It is not the government's job. It is not the government's job for schools to advocate how a child should view sex, gender, morality, or social issues. A teacher's sexual preference does not enhance a child's classroom instruction. It is the role of the government school to educate children academically. Thinking critically does not mean thinking radically. Excellence in education does not mean being an excellent social justice activist. It means being an exceptional student of fundamental learning and fundamental values. It means acquiring facts and making an individual choice on how you view those facts. It does not mean forming emotional arguments to logically derived outcomes. Basic human principles hold our country together. And that's precisely what is under assault from radicals veiled in equity officer suits. Despite what mainstream media would like you to believe, reasonable Pennsylvanians and Americans want the same things. We want to be treated with dignity and respect. We want crime-free streets and schools, economic prosperity, the right to worship God without government interference, to visit our elderly and bury them without restrictions, and to have our voices heard, even if others may disagree. We want our neighborhoods and school districts free of illicit drugs. We want school choice that holds government schools accountable and forces them to be better. We want teachers to be rewarded for their excellence and to be dismissed when they fail consistently. We believe that a parent's right to shape their child's life and instill values is our right and not the government's. If I sound upset, I am. Through the mire of the educational dysfunction is the reality that our children are not learning what they need to succeed in life. They lack the true beauty of classical liberal education. Their test scores are down year over year, and they are regularly mocked, entering the workforce for lack of fundamental educational skills. In closing, we believe in Dr. King's dream of equality, of American exceptionalism and meritocracy, not the perverse definition of equity where our children are divided into warring tribal factions of oppressors and the oppressed. This is unacceptable to parents. This cancerous ideology not only harms children academically, but it harms them psychologically, as the doctor pointed out. Dr. King's dream is of a meritocracy where racial divisions melt into, quote, a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. That is our dream also. Unfortunately, until reasonable people begin to have a constructive dialogue, the, quote, jangling discords of our nation will only fester, as Dr. King eloquently stated. I'm hopeful there is room for a new dialogue that transforms education and that you assist us in realizing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Contreras. The rules of the Senate preclude us from meeting when the Senate is in session. We're about to gavel in, so what I'm going to suggest is our final witness, Mr. Estrada from the president of the Parental Rights Association, followed by brief closing statements by Senator Street and Senator Mastriano. And so thank you for your testimony. We turn now to Mr. Estrada.